trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Don't forget I got memories, dead stain the whole room if I let them bleed. Shit was dark, I let this little light of mine.
Go ahead and get this thing started, man. Enough of this reaction band. Enough of the reaction band. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast, man. There we go. Boom. All right, so got my boy Dre in here. You know, hey, hi, what up, boy? How you feeling, man? I hope all is well with you, bro. I hope the day been good, man. My day is good, first and foremost, and I know Dre's day is good. I wasn't even gonna bring it up until I saw you, huh? Dre, we got funding. We are not getting furloughed today, bro. There's no deadline. Like we didn't go to the final hour, the witching hour at that Scott Hansen likes to call it on the red zone. Like we got funding, bro. We are still with a job. You know what I'm saying? Life is good right now, bro. How you feeling, man?
Absolutely. I mean, that was one thing. I mean, I wasn't too concerned about it. I felt like they were going to get some stuff done. So that was good to get the government shutdown averted, crises averted. You know, it's already a pandemic. Last thing you need is a government shutdown during what still is a pandemic. So, I mean, the day's been great, man. We got football tonight. I'm always excited when Thursday comes around. And also for me, this is the last day of the month. I don't know how many people know what I actually do outside of watch sports and, you know, actually live my life. But I work in the budget field, so September is a month.
Oh
that
yeah,
is
the
really
fiscal
crazy.
year. Oh my lord.
Yes, the fiscal year ends in September, so today is the last day of September. So I am very grateful of that. And also, my favorite month of the year is coming up, October. Football, basketball, and horror movies. What more can you ask for? And I'm going to be making apple cider to commensurate the day tomorrow.
Bro, you love all I know during this time of the year. He talk about my boy Dre talk about the Halloween Jones, the Jason, and the Michael Myers, bro. He goes back to the old Halloween movies, man. I'm like, I ain't gonna lie to you. I like them Jones, bro, but it's like I ain't know, because I thought I was a horror fan, but I think I grew out of it. Like, I guess I missed like the traditional ones, like the originals, because like when I grew up, we started getting into like the movies like The Grudge, The Ring, the zombie ones. Yeah. Like that's what I grew up on, and I liked them because like, I mean, it scared the shit out of me, but I liked them. But then as time went on, bruh, it's like all these repeat movies, and you done seen the plot before, you done seen the jump scares. It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. The most recent one that I liked, that was it was on the side of horror. Like the little one in Vegas with the zombies who had like a king and a queen. It was on Netflix. Oh Lord, Zombie Land.
That must have been one of the recent ones I haven't seen. Someone was telling me about it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was very recent, but it was good though. But and like that's the innovative part, right? And then in the Peele movies, the Jordan Peele, I think, or something like that, with Us and Get Out, those variations, like I like those because it's new. You know what I'm saying? And you trying to like do a different spin on the horror things. Yeah. So like I envy you because the horror used to be my favorite thing, bro, and it just started sucking. It sucks, bro.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, I grew up on it. You know, I got an older sister. My sister, we have a 6-year age gap, so. Being as though she's the older sister, she was in the early 90s. I had to watch what she watched. You know, we weren't a rich family where we had all these TVs and I mean, not many people in those days were in the early 90s, you know. So she would make me watch a lot of stuff. Oh, definitely. Yeah, someone told me about that. But yeah, so my sister, she would have me watch all of the stuff she watched. Like she was older than me, so she grew up in the 80s, the pinnacle of horror. When horror was just at its peak, every movie was coming out. So scared or not, she made her 4- or 5-year-old little brother watch all those movies with her, and I just grew up, and it just stuck with me. And I got everybody in my family watching them.
Hey, I love it, bro. I love it. Hey, Sleezo, you're a little late, bro. You know what I'm saying? Dre drink on if it's not every show, it's like every other show. Dre got the brown right beside him, bro. And you missing out because look, this is what I got.
Night, so that's why I'm drinking.
Look, I'm right here too. I'm almost done though. I started like an hour ago, so I'm almost done. I didn't want to drink too late in the night tonight, so I'm done here after this one. So listen. Let's go and get this show started, man. It's gonna be a good night. As you all know, we have, Aaron Freeman of LockedOn Atlanta, LockedOn Falcons and SB Nation coming on to preview the Atlanta Falcons and Washington football team game for this upcoming Saturday. Saturday. I'm thinking of college football. This upcoming Sunday. But prior to that, let's go again to the administrative things. Twitch. If you are watching on Twitch right now and you are not following us, go ahead and follow if you aren't. This is a followers only chat. You want to be a part of the conversations each and every week, go ahead and give us a follow. That thing goes a long way. High Life, just subscribe. You know, things are amazing, man. I appreciate the subscription, bro. And I hope, you know what I'm saying, we continue to give you the content that you want. I have something in the works. Like it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing, bro. So, and we all need it from a fan's perspective and a coaching's perspective. So when it gets settled and when things get announced, I can't wait to show it on the screen and things like that. So I appreciate the subscription as always, bro. And I appreciate you rocking with me for as long as you have. So yeah, Twitch, follow. YouTube, if you are watching, if you are not subscribed, give us a like, give us a subscription if you like the content, all that good stuff. And then the podcast. If you are listening right now, stop what you're doing. Give us a rating. Give us a review. Follow if you aren't following the podcast. Positive, no 1 stars, because the 1 stars we come and find you. It don't work like that. You know what I'm saying? Come on and help us out. Give us a little 1-sentence review. All those things. That always helps. And tonight we got call-ins for everybody who's tuning in right now. If you want to call in and get things off your chest, the question that I asked on Twitter is, can Washington turn things around? What does it take? And will they turn things around in your opinion? Right now, Dakota's pulling on my pants pocket, but guess what? I'm a professional. I'm not going to let her deter me. You know what I'm saying? As I'm going through these things, we are done with the breakdown, the administrative work. Now, let's go ahead and get to this injury report. As of Thursday, the injury report is as follows. We have Antonio Gibson on the injury report. He was a DNP, did not participate on Thursday's practice. Matt Ioannidis, same thing, DNP. Same thing with Benjamin St. Juste. He is in a concussion protocol. Antonio Gibson is injured with the shin. Matt Ioannidis, a knee. Brandon Sheriff was a full participation. He has a chest injury. And then Charles Leno is NIR, just rest. So, but he was a full participant on Thursday as well. So, Sleezo, we ain't doing no Eagle stuff for subscriptions, my brother. It's all Washington. You know what I'm saying? If you want to sub, be my guest, my brother, help your boy out. You know what I'm saying? And show your support for the show and for the stream. But we ain't doing no Eagle stuff, man. Unless you want Jalen Hurts, you know what I'm saying, throwing that interception against the Eagles. I mean, against the Cowboys.
I said Monday night, man. They got embarrassed out there. We can't talk no Eagles football.
Yeah, we can't do that, bro. I took y'all on a 3.5, bro. You called me a smart man. I felt like an idiot, but shout out to them prop bets though. Let's go to these Falcons, man. So defensive tackle Markin Davidson, ankle injury, did not participate. Russell Gage did not participate on Thursday with an ankle injury. Frank Darby, calf, full participant. Colby Gossif, illness, full participant. Eric Harris, full participant with the back, and then AJ Terrell, cornerback, concussion, full participant. We'll get into, we'll talk with Aaron to figure out, some key injuries that on their end that we may need to be aware of. If any of these guys missing time, something like that may be important. With that being said, Dre, we got these things out the way. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about your general observations about, we do have some quotes that we want to get into with the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator of Washington, Scott Turner and Jack Del Rio. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and talk about your overall thoughts of the matchup, because I want to get your opinion on this. And then also we can circle back to the quotes, but I want to get your opinion on this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game, when you look at the schedule, it's a game that I'm not going to say we should win because the Falcons are probably looking at the game at us as an opponent and thinking the same, like this is a game we should win. Both are 1-2 coming into this matchup, but also both teams are at the near bottom of offensive and defensive stats when you look at the league. Like in Washington's case, those stats ring true, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like we're close to the bottom on defense, and that's not a number that's skewed. We look like we probably should be the bottom team. And the Falcons, they've had some issues too. They made Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles offense look great in the first game they played. The second game you play against Tampa Bay, and actually that was the best game that the Falcons probably played all year when they played against Tampa Bay. Like they almost had a chance to beat Tampa Bay, but they had some late turnovers in that game. And then the Giants game, they actually came out and beat the Giants, but the Giants looked kind of horrible. And we beat the Giants as well. So we have that in common. Both of our wins are against the Giants. And like you said, this is two bad teams right now facing each other at the moment. I mean, I don't think we're a good team because the numbers don't lie. I don't think the Falcons are a good team. I think their expectations might have been a little bit lower than ours coming into the season. So this is a game with all of that said, the Washington football, with the schedule that we have, this is a game that the players and the coaches have to circle as we have to get this one just to stay in it, because right now Dallas is looking really good in the division. I mean, sure, Giants look bad. Eagles, we knew going into the season they were going to be rebuilding, but you knew Dallas was going to be coming back. They had Dak Prescott coming back, and they look good right now. Like Dallas looks like they're going to control the own division. So right now, wild card is, I don't want to think about wild card. If you're talking about this team as a playoff team, you're looking at this team to win the division like they did last year. Now, I don't know how many wins it's going to take because I don't know what Dallas is going to do, but right now they're going to be good. Like they look like they're going to be good. So losing early, this is a must-win game in a sense for Washington football team. I know a lot of people are scared to say that, but this is a must-win game because you can't afford to fall 1-3 right now at this point and get 2 games behind Dallas early in the division because you're not going against Ben DiNucci this season, as a backup quarterback. So these are games you have to win, especially with the schedule. You got the Saints coming up, you have the Bucs coming up, you still have the Chiefs. So you have a lot of these tough teams coming up, and the Falcons is a team I feel like if you're for real about trying to capitalize on what you did last year, you have to win this game.
Absolutely, man. And you spoke on must-win games, and I think the biggest thing out of this whole situation, whole ordeal, is something that we actually talked about heading to the Giants game. Like if you think about it, 2 weeks ago we asked, was that a must-win game? And one of the things that I said, and to a degree, you and AJ said that it was a must-win game too. But one of the things that I remember speaking on was that as much as you want to call certain games, it's not a must-win. It's a must. It's a want. It's something that you want to have and want to win. Make no mistake, the Giants game was a must-win. We said it, Dre, on Twitter, but also in our tell the truth moment earlier this week. Man, if we lost to the Giants, we could have easily. I mean, if we lost to the Giants, we're obviously 0-3, but we were a missed field goal away from being 0-3. And then you're getting blown out against Buffalo the next week, fellas, ladies. You're 0-3 heading into a game against the Atlanta Falcons, and guess what? Atlanta becomes a must-win then too. It was always a must-win. Like you don't want to lose these certain games. You just cannot lose. You cannot afford to lose. You're 0-3 heading to an Atlanta game, and then the perception, if it's not already bad now, it would have been much worse at 0-3. Whatever that much worse is, it would have been much worse at 0-3. So I completely agree with you. This is a must-win game for Washington. And one of the things that you spoke on, that kind of, I guess the better way to phrase this is, or should I ask? I'll ask this question as opposed to speaking on what you said. We know the defense is in trouble. The defense has been in trouble, and I think this is a good time to get into some of the coaches' quotes. But I'm going to ask you first. Curtis Samuel coming back and possibly coming back. We're not going to say he's coming back yet, but possibly coming back. Taylor Heineke's coming back or trying to bounce back from a terrible performance. Who's more likely, in your opinion, to have that bounce back when we're talking about the defensive side of the football and Taylor Heineke? I mentioned Curtis, but I had thought about it. He may not come back yet. He's just practicing right now. So I mentioned him for a second, but just on the strength of Taylor Heineke and the defensive side of the football, who needs to bounce back the most? Because both of them, I mean, we know the defense has been bad for 3 weeks in a row. Taylor's only been bad for 1 week. He's had one bad week. But where are you at with these two, and what has to happen this upcoming Sunday?
It's the defense, clearly. I mean, yeah, Heineke didn't play. He didn't play a good game at all against Buffalo. But again, that's his first bad game, and also that's an elite defense he went up against. So that wasn't a pretend defense. You know, he didn't go against a really bad defense. And I also think that how the defense set the tone in the game, because this was your strength going into the season. I think how they set the tone in the game, that's a domino effect for the rest of your team. Like it's a domino effect for your Taylor Heineke to play better in his next game, because now Taylor Heineke's not coming down 21-0, feeling like he has to be the biggest playmaker in the world, you know, every drive. You know, so that takes a little bit of pressure off of him to maybe just do whatever Ron and the coaching staff wants him to do, and that starts with the defense. This is the unit that was supposed to be the strength going into the season. 3 games in, we can't say one game they've played so far where the defense has looked markedly good. Like they haven't looked good at marginally, whatever. They haven't looked good at any point in 3 games so far throughout the season. So this is a game where they have to look like the guys that everyone was praising preseason. You know, national media was praising them. Fans thought they had a great defense going into the season. So 3 games in, you haven't looked good in 1 game. Now you have to have a bounce back. And this is also, and I say this as well, not only just because they need to have a bounce back game, but this is the first game where they're playing a quarterback that's kind of a statue in the pocket, like a quarterback where they looked good against these type of guys last year, like the edge rushers. So maybe this will be the confidence builder they need to go forward. Now, Matt Ryan's not going to do any running. He's not going to do any pocket manipulation like you see Josh Allen or Daniel Jones they're going to do. You don't have to worry about the read option with Matt Ryan, even though Falcons might try to fool you with that on the goal line, because I've seen him do that in a couple of games this season. But this is a guy that at least may let the pressure guys, the edge rushers, the interior linemen, get a couple of those pressures that may turn into sacks where you don't have to worry about him getting outside of the pocket and finding guys downfield. And that may have a domino and trigger effect on the rest of the defense. Maybe the linebackers feel a little bit better about themselves. The secondary, like William Jackson, he maybe needs that boost of confidence. Maybe he gets a play or two off of what the pressure's creating. And then, like I said, the offense also gets to build off of that too. Like I had a discussion earlier on Twitter where we were last in time of possession. I saw that stat. We were like 31st or 30th in time of possession this season so far. And I mentioned that the defense is on the field 8 minutes at a time, usually, like on drives. And a lot of people, you know, usually attribute that to you're having a 3-and-out offense. But this is a case where we're coming out opening drives, giving out 7 points every. I think we've been scored on every opening drive to start this season so far. So the defense, whether they're, you know, on the sideline or coming out starting the game, they're not setting the tone at all. So now you have to set the tone and maybe start a domino trigger effect for the rest of the team. So defense has to be the bounce back team.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into these quotes from Jack Del Rio. I was going to do Scott Turner. Scott Turner mainly was different. Well, I'll quickly do Scott Turner since I have a couple quotes for him. It's on Curtis Samuel, and we can move forward to Jack Del Rio. But I'm going to give the phone lines are open now. I'm going to put the number in the chat as well, 443-242-4479. How can Washington football turn their season outlook around heading into week 4? That's one question. But the second question is, after you answer how, will they turn things around? Do you believe that Washington can do that? So the number is 443-242-4479. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat again for everybody that's in here. Again, how can Washington football turn their season around, turn their season outlook around, and will they be able to turn things around? So that was the 2 questions. So let's go against these quotes, man. So Scott Turner talked about Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel's been back at practice for 2 days in a row now. And I'll just read a couple quotes for him from Scott Turner. And Dakota, I'm going to need you. Relax, bro. Get your phone. Your phone. All right. First quote was regarding oh shoot, I didn't even lead the the actual question. But anyway, he said Curtis did a great job today. He think that he did a good job yesterday. He did a little bit more today from yesterday. So he think he's moving around a little bit more, and he has kind of a little bit of spring in his steps. We'll continue to evaluate it. And Coach Rivera and RV, which is head athletic trainer Ryan Vermillion, they'll talk everything through, and ultimately we'll see if he's ready to go. That's one of the quotes that they had. And then the second quote from Scott was that the thing with Curtis, it's always been when he's physically ready to go. Mentally, he's the guy that really stays in it. He's a really intelligent player. He can get back in pretty quickly. We'll just have to pick our spots and decide the things that they're going to be able to do with him. But it's not a very big challenge, just getting him physically ready to go play. And that's kind of one of the things that Ron Rivera mentioned prior to week 1 was always about Curtis getting conditioned and ready for the season. So if that's the same case this week, heading into the Atlanta Falcons game, my guess, just reading from Scott Turner, is that although Ron Rivera hasn't said it this week, it's clear to me that they're not even eyeing for him returning against Atlanta. It's all about just seeing where he's at, making sure there's no setbacks this week. And if he's able to go through a full week of practice without actually, first off getting hurt, but also seeing where his condition is, then maybe he comes back the following week, which I believe is next week is New Orleans. Right?
Yeah, I don't think you need to rush Curtis at the moment. And even if I agree with how they're handling him right now. Like, let him see how he responds to a couple of days in practice. I mean, so far it's been 2 days so far. You have 21 days from when you designate the guy off in your reserve to bring him back on your team. So let him go through this week of practice, sit him out this week, bring him back for the New Orleans Saints. Because, and the reason I say that is because I think Curtis is going to be such a big part of this offense that you don't want him to be limited when he is out there on the field. You want him to be at full speed. You want him to play the full playbook. You don't want to be like, okay, I'm only going to play Curtis 10 to 15 snaps. Like, and most of the time, if you're going to do that, most likely he's going to be a decoy. So when Curtis is ready, I'd rather he be full speed than us just trying to, wonder how many snaps we need to give him because he hasn't played yet. So that's fine. Get him a week of practice. Let him practice every day. From what I've heard from the beat reporters, he's looked good. They say he's looked much better than he did a couple of weeks ago when he tried to practice. So let him get a full week of it. Let him see how his groin feels on Saturday after 3 straight days of practice. And then you'll bring him in New Orleans. He'll be ready to go full speed because he is a guy from what they're talking about from the coaches. He doesn't need much time to do this, that, or the third. You bring him in next week against New Orleans. He can go full speed, no limited snaps.
All right. And then Jack Del Rio. So I have quite a few quotes from Jack Del Rio, man. Obviously so. Jack he's not under fire for it as far as his job is related. He's just under fire for the work that's been done on his unit. So a lot of people was looking forward to this presser. And truth be told, I'm not gonna lie to you all, everybody that's listening, and everybody who I talked with on Twitter about Jack Del Rio's upcoming presser. I was interested in hearing what he was going to say, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily one who really thought that what he said at the podium was going to like put him in a negative light. Like he's never been that type of coach because he's always been consistent with his answers. Even when things were good last year, he was consistent with his answers. And with that being said, since it's 7:25, we can run through a couple of them. I had like, what is this? 3, 4, 5. It was 5 quotes. So it was one that people vehemently just did not like his response. And it was on William Jackson III having a pass interference in each of his first 3 games. So Del Rio mentioned, or his response to that question was the fact that, or this is what he said verbatim. Yeah, he was interfered with last week. They called it right the first time. Cole Holcomb was interfered with as well. So those are 2 touchdowns you could take off the board. Yeah, I love the way he's competing. He's a competitive guy. His technique was really good last week on that particular play. That was somehow turned from what is originally called to something that went clearly in their favor. but I like the way Will's competing and will continue to play good football with Will. So there were some people that disagreed with him simply because he's talking about counting touchdowns. And I really don't understand the issue with it because for me, Dre, it was never an issue of this response in particular. It was never an issue of his defense playing bad. It was the fact that not only are they playing bad, but these are moments where you could have with good officiating or proper officiating, you could have easily helped your defense out or helped the defense out in a fair manner by making sure that the proper call was correct. There's like, you never know what would have happened if you guys called the offensive pass interference and things like that. Instead, it went on the defensive side of the football and it cost Washington touchdowns. He's not saying that the Washington defense would have kept them out of the end zone. He's saying we never got that opportunity because they called the defensive pass interference on William Jackson and Cole Holcomb. So that was one answer I really didn't think was an issue. And then there was another issue, or I'll go through two more quotes right quick. So one thing that he mentioned on if there are still coverage disguises that they're working on because some of the new personnel in the back of the defense. One thing that he mentioned here was, well, of course, but I'm not going to offer. He's saying if they're working on coverage, disguising coverages. But he said, well, of course, but I'm not going to offer that up. I'm not an excuse maker. I'm not going to get into trying to explain away anything. We need to play better. And we're going to focus on how and what we need to do for that to happen. Another one, he mentioned on why players freestyle or don't play within the scheme of the defense. He said, yeah, the desire to make plays. We are at our best when we're all doing our job on point, kind of on a mission. We all have assignments within the mission. It gets better and more formal when you're on point, and when you're not, it doesn't go quite as well. So we're about sticking together. We're a group. I love my players. I love my coaches. We work really good. We work with really good people every day. Great energy, focus, trying to make things better. Second thing, or two more quotes. He mentioned on how his pass rushers refine their technique and grow from year 1 to year 2. He said, yes, that will occur. Doesn't come all at once. They tend to come in bunches, and we're looking forward to getting started. And then the last thing, on the defensive line, having the expectations of being the best in the NFL, and this is one of the best answers that a coach could ever have, in my opinion here. He said, I don't care about that. Hype doesn't mean anything. That's part of the game. We love that you all cover us, and we love that fans are excited about it, and you can have all the ranks and thoughts about ranks all you want. And I'm happy with that. It's great. It's great for the game. At the end of the day, it's a performance-based business. Potential doesn't mean much. So we're about production. We're about playing well and playing together, and that's where our focus is. It's what gives you a chance when you have a good group of men that are working together and staying together, that are willing to take accountability and will get it going. So, Dre, my whole point of bringing all these quotes together is that all of these answers were boring. But guess what the bottom line with Jack Del Rio was? It wasn't the fact that he gave answers that so many people didn't like. People wanted to put his feet to the fire and things like that. Dre, he gave no excuses. He even mentioned it in his answer. It's all about playing better. It's all about moving forward and focusing on correcting issues. He's not going to give the media any fire. He's not going to give the media anything to write about. He's all about doing his job, and he's made that known through multiple pressers that it's all about fixing. It's not about talking about it. It's about doing and being about it. And that last answer about people having expectations on that defensive line, he don't give a damn about it. I respect it from that standpoint, Dre, that he's not focused on that. It's all about actually showing up and making sure that he gives the people something good to talk about through production.
I agree to an extent. I felt like he might have contradicted himself a little bit in those quotes. And in a sense, I say that because I love the part about no excuses. And he mentioned a couple of times in that presser that it starts with me. And I love that about Jack Del Rio, because Jack is not throwing anyone under the bus. He's not putting names out there to the fire. He's putting himself first in the line of fire. Like, hey, everything starts with me. If some calls are getting made that's wrong, if there's miscommunication, it starts with me. That's where it starts with. But I didn't care much for his comments about the whole, oh, you got to take 2 touchdowns off the board because 2 of those were penalties. No, because, okay, on William Jackson's thing, I agree. That should have been a penalty. That should have been a penalty. But after that, your defense didn't do anything to stop them from getting a touchdown on their drive. And then the Cole Holcomb thing. I mean, that was another situation. But that's one of those things where you look at film, you say, okay, yeah, he pushed off. But at the same time, your defense wasn't doing anything to stop them from getting where they were going to be. I mean, and they inspired no confidence that, even if they would have called that, you would have stopped them anyway. I mean, like we got gifted with a false start early in the game on a 3rd and 10 that gave us a favorable 3rd and 15 situation where Buffalo converted, and he ended up scoring on an opening drive. Now, if your defense stops them on 3rd and 15 where there was no penalty or nothing involved there, then you don't have 7 points there. So that's a TD you can take off the board, right, Jack? So that's all I'm saying is get your defense out ready to play from get-go. Stop worrying about what the refs are or not calling, and give us some confidence that you can stop these guys regardless of what the refs are doing.
Boom. All right. Let's go and get to Aaron Freeman, man. I like that response. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go ahead and take a quick ad break right quick, and when we come back, we will have Aaron Freeman of Locked On Atlanta, and then I keep saying Locked On Atlanta, but Locked On Falcons, and then SB Nation Aaron Freeman. So we'll be right back after this break, and see you soon. Hey, look. All right, so we back, y'all. We back. Ladies and gentlemen, join us tonight on Trap Die Podcast. We have Aaron Freeman. Aaron covers the Atlanta Falcons on multiple platforms, SB Nation's Falcoholic and the Locked On Network's Locked On Falcons podcast. We'll talk briefly for a second, but for the people, man, Aaron, how are you doing, boss, man? Everything's good with you today?
Doing great. Love talking football.
Absolutely, man. So, Aaron, last week, we spoke to a member of the Buffalo Bills community and got insight on their rise to becoming AFC title contenders. For Atlanta, unfortunately, things have regressed from a standpoint of looking at their 2017 season to this point of 2021. In your words, what's been the story of the Atlanta Falcons in recent years, man? What is transpired, and how are they to become where they are right now?
Yeah, man. I don't want to take too much time talking about all the Falcons' problems over the last couple of years, but a lot of it stemmed when they were in the Super Bowl back in 2016, 2017. The reason why they were in the Super Bowl was because they had a historically great offense that year under offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan, who's now in San Francisco, and then he left to go to San Francisco the following year. And the people that they asked to replace him, Steve Sarkisian, now the head coach at the University of Texas, and Dirk Cutter, who's now retired, just were not up to par in terms of producing a high-level offense that could, sort of get this team consistently playing at a playoff caliber level. And unfortunately, because of the dip that the offense had, you're expecting your defense to sort of pick up the slack. And while the defense did make modest improvements over the last couple of years, it wasn't enough to sort of keep that afloat. And so essentially the Falcons went from a team, that was extremely close to winning a Super Bowl to basically a middling football team once you sort of remove that one special element that the team had that one particular year.
So I didn't have this on my list, but it just popped in my head, man, as you were talking. How detrimental, I mean, look, personally, I would just say this. Washington has had many heartbreaks. So I understand heartbreaks, but I have never witnessed the Super Bowl. I have never witnessed my team in the Super Bowl, none of that. How detrimental was that 28-3 lead? I'm not talking about the actual game, but I'm saying just how things transpired with that offensive coordinator, with the team that you all had that year, and then things following, just understanding that this was that moment to kind of get things done. And maybe because Kyle ended up leaving at eventually, but maybe that this type of team, clearly, as you all, it probably wouldn't have lasted any much longer, because that was a really elite offense that was probably one for the ages. I'm not going to sit here and rank them personally, but that was just really a good offense. Like, how detrimental was that 2016 season to the future of the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, all football fans, maybe with the exception of the New England Patriot fans, like you don't get that many bites at the apple in terms of winning Super Bowls. And you got to take advantage of it. We saw Philadelphia do that a couple of years ago with Doug Peterson. And look, he's gone from that job. So they had their one shot they took advantage of it. You look at it at a college level. You look at a team like LSU. You know, Alabama has owned the SEC for years and years under Nick Saban, but LSU had one shot at the title. They took advantage of it 2 years ago, won it. Probably will not get another shot anytime soon. And so the Falcons basically had that one shot, and they didn't take advantage of it. And that's, you know, that's an issue in the league. And so, you know, the thing I always joke with the Falcons is like, you know, we're still dealing with that emotional and psychological trauma of that Super Bowl loss. And these last couple of years now with head coach Arthur Smith, the goal with hiring Arthur Smith, an offensive mind that was very successful in Tennessee these last couple of years, was hopefully that he would be able to get the team back to that level, at least the offensive side of the ball to that level. And, you know, so far in his first year through the first 3 games, we're not seeing the offense perform at that level. Obviously, we still got a lot of season left to be played. But it does seem like there's a pretty long road ahead for the Falcons to get anywhere close to performing where they're not only, you know, a perennial playoff team, but a potential Super Bowl contender.
Absolutely. First and foremost, my bad, Clyde. Thank you for the follow, man. I appreciate you checking in. Appreciate you watching us. Hope all things is well with you, boss man. All right. So, Aaron, the Matt Ryan, he's a top quarterback in the league. We're not going to go like top 10, top 12, but he's a respectable quarterback, above average to this point in his career. What is the opinion of Matt Ryan in terms of the Falcons community? Does he still have that respect of the fan base in the Atlanta media? Because I'm one on the outside looking in saying that there's no way in hell that you can sleep on, from a Washington standpoint, you can sleep on Matt Ryan and think that this is a cakewalk of a win, or should be a W given where we are at our season.
Yeah, I mean, with Matt Ryan, it's a polarizing opinion. You know, you have people on both sides. I think generally speaking, most people are still supportive of Matt Ryan. Most people respect what Matt Ryan has done these last couple of years, but because of the Falcons missing the playoffs 6 out of the last 8 years, you know, the voices that are a little less supportive of Matt Ryan are beginning with each year growing louder. Everybody knows that this league is about getting results. And typically when you're a quarterback with Matt Ryan's production, his performance level, his consistency, to have all the success that he's had over the last 13 years in the NFL, and you don't have that hardware that we were just talking about with the Super Bowl ring to, you know, show for it, you know, people tend to start saying, oh, well, you're part of the problem. You're the reason why the team is not having as success. And whether that's fair or not, that's just the nature of the beast. We just know that the longer you play in this league and the less success you have over that period of time, the more people are going to be a little bit more critical of you. So I think with Matt Ryan now, the unfortunate thing for Matt Ryan is, given the loss of players like Julio Jones, given a new offense, given some concerns on the offensive line, the Falcons have not done a great job putting the ideal supporting cast around Matt Ryan to get the most out of these last couple of years. You've seen it with other older aging quarterbacks, whether we're talking about Tom Brady or Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger in previous years. You know, not Ben Roethlisberger this year, but it's a kind of a similar situation in Pittsburgh that you have in Atlanta now, where you don't necessarily have a great supporting cast around them. And, you know, you can't expect a now 36-year-old Matt Ryan to carry the team like you could expect from him, you know, 5 or more years ago. And so right now you're not getting the usual performance out of Matt Ryan. Hopefully that changes in the near future if you're a Falcon fan, but obviously if you're a Washington fan, you know, you're hoping that he continues to struggle. And I think this week in particular, Washington certainly can do some damage, because I think really the biggest knock at Matt Ryan at this point in time is he's taken a lot of hits over the years, and he is not particularly doing a great job when it comes to teams being able to pressure the quarterback this year. And Washington is a team that we know is certainly capable, with all the talent they have up front, of pressuring the quarterback. So if that continues this week, then I think it certainly favors Washington as far as this matchup goes. So we'll see what Matt Ryan does, but so far this season it has been a rough one. And I think it's going to lead to, until that changes, you're going to hear a lot more people being a little bit more critical of Matt Ryan moving forward.
So 2 things. I didn't know, for some reason, I just got so used to Matt Ryan being in the NFL. I did not realize he was 36 years old, man. All the old quarterbacks, all the old head quarterbacks that I grew up on for some degree is just retiring, man. It's kind of crazy. Okay, so Good Lord. Julio is now gone. 3 weeks into the season, Atlanta's offense has been ranked in 27th in yards and 29th in points. The passing attack was ranked 5th last year in the NFL. And then obviously the pass rank this year is ranked 25th. You mentioned some struggles just now with the offensive line and obviously trying to find the void for Julio. I would ask you, given that you answered to that degree, what is the biggest concern to this point in the season of this Atlanta Falcons offense?
I joked on LockedOn Falcons, the podcast. It's all of the above with the Falcons offense right now in terms of what they're struggling with. The quarterback play isn't working, the running game isn't working, the offensive line isn't working, the receivers aren't necessarily getting over. We saw Calvin Ridley really play well last year when Julio Jones was out of the lineup for half the season. He hasn't really particularly played that well so far this year. He's barely, I think right now he's on pace to not even have 1,000-yard season, even with the 17-game schedule right now, and sort of expectations for him going into the season where he was going to be putting up like 1,300 to 1,500 yard type of season. So he needs to get on track. Obviously the Falcons went out and used a high pick on Kyle Pitts. And sort of, we know historically speaking, tight ends don't usually hit the ground running, but there was a lot of expectations that Kyle Pitts was going to have to do that given the loss of Julio Jones, and Calvin really can't catch every football. So you needed Kyle Pitts to step up, and he's been up and down so far. He was very quiet for the first 3 quarters of that Giants game, then came on strong in the fourth quarter, made some big plays to set up the Falcons to help them win that game. So when if you're looking at sort of a go-to weapon for the Falcons, to be honest with you, their most effective passing weapon these first 3 games has been Cordero Patterson, the kick returner. And basically his ability to, turn a simple check down into a 20-yard gain has been the most valuable asset for the Falcons offense, because they are struggling to push the ball down the field. And it's been a lot of checkdowns for this offense so far this season. And if guys like Ridley and Pitts and now Patterson aren't turning those into big plays, this offense is really struggling to move the football. So, the Falcons offense is very much a work in progress at this point in time. They are certainly feeling the loss of Julio Jones, who's been that security blanket, that old reliable weapon for Matt Ryan over the last decade. And, hopefully Calvin Ridley can start to emerge. I think this week is a good opportunity for him going up against a Washington secondary that hasn't particularly played well. So I think this is a potential breakout game for Calvin Ridley. If he doesn't break out this week, then, obviously they'll have some opportunities later this season, but the sooner, obviously, the better.
You actually answered one question, man, because I was going to ask you if it was actually Kyle Pitts who had the potential for a breakout game in your opinion. But you said Calvin Ridley, and I would imagine with Cordero Patterson seemingly being the big play guy, and Calvin Ridley, albeit he's leading the team in receptions, he just seems to be the guy who's just getting targeted a lot, given that he only has 8 yards per catch. How can we expect, from a Washington's perspective, how can we expect Atlanta to try and attack this defense? What do you think is Atlanta's best bet, and what could we expect to see as that game unfolds?
Yeah, because I think obviously Atlanta's biggest concern is going to be keeping Matt Ryan upright, and I think obviously if they can run the football effectively, that will help. Because that takes pressure off the passing game, but the Falcons running game hasn't been particularly great this year. So I'm not expecting them to run all over Washington or anything. Maybe they're a little bit better than they've been the last couple of weeks, but I do think the Falcons are going to try to, run more play action passing to try to get those Washington pass rushers, off their keys and whatnot. And if they can do that, and I think with Ridley specifically, one of the things that the Falcons did really effectively last year at the end of the year with Ridley, particularly in play action, was that you would see these sort of deep comeback routes and these corner routes. And I think if the Falcons can get Ridley going in that regard, given his sort of route running ability, his ability to get separation, I think that's probably the key for the Falcons to get back to some of the things that they were doing late last season with Julio Jones at a lineup and led to Calvin Ridley having some really big games. And if they can do that, working some of that play action stuff, you can start to see the team get those big plays, which is going to really help go up against this Washington defense that certainly has had its fair share of struggles defending those big plays.
I'm surprised, man. So I do my little homework sometimes, but I also do listen to other podcasts just in general. You mentioned Mike Davis at one point, and you called him a bigger version of J.D. McKissick, I believe. I'm surprised that he didn't fit into the game plan against a Washington football team. How do you feel like Mike Davis can actually have some success against this Washington defense, or is this like a just something where he just has to find a way to contribute? Like, what's your idea of Mike Davis in this game?
Yeah, I think you're referring to me. I think I was actually Patterson that I called a bigger version of J.D. McKissick just because of how valuable he is in the passing game.
Oh, okay.
But like, I think Mike Davis can. I think he can have an impact. The problem with the Falcon, with running the football, like you got to have it's both the running back and the blocking, right? And while I think Mike Davis takes care of business in terms of the running back part of it, his ability to get yards at the contact, being sort of that 230-pound bowling ball there. That not quite Derrick Henry, who is, but basically a poor man's version of what Arthur Smith had in Derrick Henry here in Atlanta. I think he can be effective, but he just hasn't gotten the block, and the Falcons have really struggled running the football. I think I saw a stat where like they're the only team that hasn't converted a single short yardage run play all year long. And that's on blocking. That's not on the running back. So while I would like to have high hopes for Mike Davis, until the blocking gets better, it's hard to have a lot of confidence that the running game is going to be something that the Falcons can really utilize and really get the most out of Mike Davis this week. Now, maybe in future games against maybe less stout defensive lines, they can get something going. But right now, I don't have a ton of confidence. I think Mike Davis is a heck of a football player, but running behind this offensive line until they start playing better, it doesn't really mean a whole lot.
All right, so Aaron, switching gears, let's go to the defensive side of the ball for Atlanta. Now, I know you guys have a new coordinator this year. Arthur Smith brought him with him from Tennessee. He was the guy that he coached with in Tennessee, Dean Pease. And Dean Pease, as a lot of football fans may know, he's a two-time Super Bowl winner as a defensive coordinator in New England and also Baltimore. He had great defenses everywhere he's went. He's kind of like Jack Del Rio on our end, where he's coached great defenses everywhere he's went. So far this season, Atlanta's kind of got it off to a rough start, but how do you feel about the defense so far, and what's the outlook with Dean Pease on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think they're coming off their best game defensively. You can certainly say, how much stock should we put into that because it's going up against the Giants last week. But progress at this point in time is good for the Falcons defense. And they got off to a very rough start this year. Philadelphia gave them a lot of problems. Obviously, Tampa Bay, we know how good that offense has the capability of being. And they did it okay, I guess you could say. If you're grading on a curve going up against that high-flying Bucs offense, they did a pretty decent job, I guess you could say, at slowing them down and allow the Falcons to get back into that game in the second half. But, I think with the defense, the expectations aren't that high that Dean Pease is going to come in and really make this a great defense. It's the difference between Washington. The expectation I imagine there is that's a unit that's supposed to be one of the best in the league. The Falcons are just kind of hoping for being an average defense at this point in time. And if they're just like allowing to keep this team in games, which they have been able to do for the most part, they were able, even though they gave up 32 points to Philadelphia in week 1, they got a bunch of stops in the second half of that game that if the offense had taken care of business, they would have been able to get back into that game and make it a lot closer before Philadelphia put some points on them late to really make that spread look bigger than it was. And then, of course, Tampa Bay, they were able to cut that lead to 3 points in the fourth quarter by getting some stops on that Bucs offense after a fast start for Tampa Bay. And then last week, they were able to get some key stops against the Giants that allowed them to come back at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. So I think the Falcons defense, while not going to be a great unit, has certainly been playing good enough that if the offense was taking care of business, things would be much more favorable for this team, at least as far as winning games. So, again, the ceiling for this Falcons defense is not nearly as high as it is in Washington. Again, you're hoping to get a top 20 defense for the Falcons. That's kind of the hope right now. And I think they're at least on a path where by the year's end, you could see that if they can continue to show growth there. But yeah, the expectations aren't particularly high for this Falcons defense. And I think, based off of those relatively low expectations, I think they're doing a pretty decent job.
Sounds good. And like I said, you got Dean Pease. He's a guy, like you say, you may not be a top 20 unit, but he's a guy that progressively may get that defense a little bit better. And an experienced coach like him, he's a best friend for a head coach. But moving on, from an outsider's perspective, how do you view Taylor Heineke as a quarterback? Like, what do you see, from a Falcons standpoint in him as a guide? Is this a guy that maybe you feel like the Falcons have to game plan for? Or is this a guy you feel like, hey, looks like a backup quarterback, we may have some success against this guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because you got a new coaching staff, so you don't have the familiarity with Taylor Heineke from his days in Carolina, as well as Scott Turner, the OC there, from his days in Carolina, where, the old coaching staff had played Carolina a bunch of times under Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, all these guys, so that you would feel a lot more comfortable that they would sort of know what to expect and be able to put a good game plan out there. With this new coaching staff, you don't have that familiarity. As you say, Dean Pease has been around, I think 30, 40 years in the NFL. So it's not like Washington's going to come up with something that he hasn't seen before. So I think they'll be prepared for that. But as far as Taylor Heineke goes, going back 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he played for Carolina, he had to step in for an injured Cam Newton in the game and I thought he did some decent things against the Falcons on that particular game, given his mobility. We've seen him step in previous weeks, in previous seasons in Washington, and make some plays. He's one of those, I guess you could call him volatile quarterbacks. We saw last week where, he had some rough interceptions, but he can also, do some things off script and make some plays. So like he's a guy that you kind of have to live with the good, live with the bad. And I think he can do some damage, particularly if you can get Washington's defense in the running game to sort of stabilize things, and all he has to do is manage the game for the most part. And if then you can get him to make a couple of plays, he's certainly a guy that you do have to be a little bit worried about. But obviously, I don't think he's the type of quarterback that you want to go into a game expecting him to throw it 40, 50 times and win. That's not really what he's built to do. But he's certainly a guy that if you can sort of keep things on schedule for him, he can do some damage.
Absolutely. And I got two more questions for you. This is going to kind of coincide with one, but on the defensive side as well, sticking for the Falcons, tell me some of the strengths on that side of the ball, like some of the players or maybe a unit as a whole that the Washington football fans maybe need to pay attention to on Sunday, and give me a couple of weaknesses on that side of the ball, maybe something to exploit from a Washington standpoint.
Well, the Falcons' best player right now is probably Grady Jarrett.
I love that guy.
He's one of the better D tackles in the league. Certainly can wreak havoc on anybody's interior offensive line. Did a great job against the Giants this past week. They have AJ Terrell, the cornerback, their first round pick from 2 years ago. He's supposed to be coming off of the concussion protocol this week, so he should be back, and that's going to be a great aid for the Falcons defense, particularly trying to keep Terry McLaurin contained this weekend. He's a young up-and-coming player, and he's basically the only guy that was making plays against that Buccaneers offense in week 2. Their linebackers have been a little bit up and down, but I think both guys, in Deion Jones and Foye Oluokun, are coming off pretty solid games against the Giants. So hopefully that's another group that's trending upward. Dante Fowler's made some key critical plays coming off the edge. He's not going to be this dominant pass rusher, but he's gotten some key sack strips at key points in games to keep the Falcons competitive. He got one early in the Bucs game that sort of stopped the Bucs from going up big early in that game, and it helped facilitate their comeback to sort of get back into that game. He got the key stop at the end of the game last week against the Giants that stopped the Giants from scoring, and then that gave the Falcons the ball back so that they go down the field and get the game-winning field goal. So, those are some players. Isaiah Oliver, their nickel cornerback, has been very up and down over his career. It's coming off probably his best game against the Giants, where he was able to lock down their first round pick in Kadarius Toney. He got a couple of pressures as a blitzer off the edge. He made some key plays in run support. He had a fumble recovery and strip against Evan Ingram that was key to sort of slowing down the Giants' momentum in the second quarter as well. So those are some of the players that have been standing out for the Falcons in recent weeks. And I think if the Falcons can get all of those guys to play well again, they certainly, I think, will have a good chance of being able to slow down this Washington offense. But those are some of the names to keep an eye on.
All right. So a couple things before we close out, Aaron. I definitely always appreciate people's time and appreciate your time, and thank you for checking in with us. Well, I guess we mentioned some injuries. I think the biggest one probably would be AJ Terrell, who's coming off of the concussion. I would imagine that's the key injury to note of one person that is coming back. Okay. So with that being said, who wins and why? Let us know what your opinion is on this game.
Right now, I'm leaning probably Washington taking care of business. I just think the battle in the trenches is probably going to be a little bit offensive line as well as their defensive line. I love what Grady Jarrett and Dante Fowler are doing, but I don't know if those two guys alone is going to be enough to really get this Washington offense off of schedule and whatnot, and getting them to play left-handed. So I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a game that goes down probably to the final possession or so. But I kind of have Washington winning like 23-21 or something like that.
Okay. All right. So Aaron, before you get up out of here, it's plug talk. This is your opportunity to let the people know where they can find you, what you got going on, where they can read you, where they can hear from you, all that good stuff, my man. So go ahead and give that plug. Appreciate you joining us, but let the people know where they can hear and find you.
Yeah. If they want to read what I got a column coming out Friday on Falcoholic, the SB Nation website for the Atlanta Falcons, talking about that battle in the trenches that I think favors Washington, and some of the things that the Falcons can do to slow that down. Obviously, Monday through Friday, you can hear me on LockedOn Falcons podcast. It's available, on all podcast platforms. So that's everyday content, 5 days a week, talking about the Falcons. And Friday's episode is going to be more keys to the game, talking a little bit about Calvin Ridley and what he can do to have a potential breakout game. And of course, people can find me on Twitter at FalcFans. That's FalcFans. And usually I'm being very snarky about the Falcons and complaining about them and sort of their struggles. But hopefully, this week I'll actually get a week of tweeting some positive things about the Falcons if they take care of business on Sunday.
Absolutely, man. Look, I need to, if you're snarky, I need to take some lessons from you, because I'm pretty sure our fan bases aren't too dissimilar, I guess, if that's the word. We're pretty much in
very true.
Boat. Yeah. So with that being said,
I grew up in Virginia, so I know all about Washington fans.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got a little familiarity with the boys. Okay, cool. So with that being said, man, hey, I appreciate you. Enjoy your night, man, and hopefully we catch a good game tonight on Thursday Night Football with the Jags and the Bengals, man. Take care,
appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
All right. Sometimes I be forgetting to tell people. I'm gonna thank them, but I be forgetting to tell people that they can just leave. I'm gonna just help myself out with the stream and just let them know. Thank them afterwards. But anyway, that was Aaron Freeman, everybody. I appreciate Aaron for coming through and giving us the spiel on the Atlanta Falcons, man, and giving us a take. So, Dre, before we close out, first and foremost, everybody who's still here, actually Jagged, I'm sorry, Jagged, thank you for the follow. I didn't want to interrupt the interview, man. Dre, you know what I'm saying, was cooking a little bit, so I didn't want to stop him for a second. But Jagged, thank you for the follow. And let's go ahead and close out with these scores. And stay tuned. Well, I always say this, stay tuned for the live stream, but ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to the podcast and you're on YouTube, stay tuned for Antioch Consultants' official pick for the Washington football team against the Atlanta Falcons Week 4 game. Antioch is 1-2 so far, but again, if I'm out here promoting their product and I'm promoting these guys, I know these guys for a long time, over a decade. So these guys will turn things around. But yes, stay tuned for their official pick for the Washington football team against the Atlanta Falcons Week 4 game. Dre, I'm gonna hand it to you. Final score and the game's MVP. Last week, I think we were both right. I think we both said Buffalo, and I think we both said Josh Allen, if I recall correctly. But what do we got for this week?
I'm gonna go with my most confident bold pick yet for this team this year, I think we win 31-17 against the Falcons this week. I think the defense, if they don't do it this week, they won't do it all season. But I think this is a week that they finally come out and they give you something. They show you some kind of flash of what they're supposed to be, at least in this league. And I think the offense has a bounce back game this week against the Atlanta Falcons defense. I think that's a defense that, if the offense can move the ball on, they can do it against that defense right now while they're still figuring things out on their end. So I'm going 31-17, Washington football team. And I believe it's because the defense finally does something to show you what they are supposed to be.
Okay. All right. All right. So I guess it's my turn now. If you all in the chat who's still here, if you all want to give a score prediction, matter of fact, Sleeves, I did see yours. You said you think that Washington will take the dub this week. But yeah, that's you said our defense is going to step up and show out. So if you all want to give a score prediction in y'all game MVP, let us know. I'll go get them, read them off before we get up out of here. But for me, final score. There's one thing that I always, or that I need to like trust my instinct on, and that's always believing what your eyes are seeing, man. Until things start changing and turning around, I do think that this defense will give up a lot of points. I do think that they'll still give up plenty of yards. However, I think Washington wins. I think it's just going to be a high scoring game, and I'm thinking 28-24. I mean, it's not because I picked the over in the game already. I don't think that's the reason why we win. And I don't think that's the reason why it's a high scoring game. I just think that the defense for both sides of the ball are not that together yet. But 28-24 Washington. But I do think what Aaron is saying has merit. And then at the same time, Atlanta is in a position where they have a quarterback who's not that mobile. And that offensive line is kind of compromised, but they still find ways to compete. They put up a lot of points enough points against Tampa Bay, but the turnovers, as you mentioned, Dre, kind of hurt them towards the end of the game. So with that being said, again, 28-24 Washington. The game MVP is going to be defensive lineman Jonathan Allen. I don't know where Jared came from, but Jonathan Allen, he's going to be defensive MVP. I feel like this is one again where you're going to be able to get pressure on this guy, but at the same time, because he's not as mobile as the previous three quarterbacks, you'll be able to get home a little bit more. Those sacks are going to pile up this week. I'm thinking we have about 5, maybe 6 sacks. That may seem like it's dominant, but at the same time, it's not like you're getting. It's not like it's going to be an onslaught. Like you can still produce points from a offensive perspective in that regard, even though you're getting sacked a lot. But Matt Ryan is a playmaker, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. So 28-24 Washington. So we have High Life 24-20 Washington. Schleezo 28-17 Washington. MVP Antonio Gibson. I like that one, man. I like that one, Antonio Gibson.
I like that too. I like
Absolutely. That. All right. So again, everybody that's listening, stay tuned for the Andy Up Consultants pick of the week for Washington at Atlanta Falcons. And with that being said, Dre, I know you said you had some teasers tonight. Did you lock up anything for Saturday's slate of games or Sunday's slate of games yet?
Well, no, not for those games yet, because we still got a couple of days. I mean, I'm on Thursday tonight. I took a 2-team teaser, 6-point teaser. We got UVA at +10, and we also had the Bengals at -1.5. So right now, UVA is making me look good. They're up 7-0 on Miami. So we just need the Bengals to start doing some things, and we get some money to roll in for the weekend. And I'm ready for the weekend. As far as other things I got going on, I should have this week's preview article for the Washington football team and Falcons coming out tomorrow. And also, I like to do the history as I relive it, where I watch old games and I talk about the old games that I watch of this week's opponent coming up, like the games between the Redskins and Washington football team history versus your upcoming opponent. I love to talk about that because I love nostalgia. So that's what we got going on this weekend.
Absolutely. Look, before we get up out of here, let's go Jaguars, man. +7.5, baby. I'm not bold enough to put them on the money line, but I will take that 7.5. I got some juice and I got some action.
It's a
tonight,
big number.
Man. Absolutely. So let's see a good game, man. I just want to see a good game, but I also got, hey, money ain't no good. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't, I messed up the quote. We're going to ignore it. I messed it up.
That's fine.
I messed it up. Anyway, we out of here, man. So look, next time y'all catch us is gonna be on game day, man. Sunday, pregame and postgame. Like I said, for those who aren't familiar, if y'all missed the postgame show last week, it's because there wasn't one. That was an issue on my end, man. I was going through some things. Nothing too detrimental, man. But we just needed a little break. Nothing to do with the beatdown that Buffalo handed us. It was something prior to that. So yeah, with that being said, pregame, postgame this Saturday. Y'all enjoy y'all weekend. Y'all be great, man. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the games this weekend, man. We will catch y'all Sunday. Y'all be blessed. Peace.
This week's Washington football team odds are presented by Ante-Up Consulting. We have the best odds and wager plays in the DMV. This week, Washington football team is -1 at the Atlanta Falcons, total of 47.5. I'm going to back the Washington football team here, minus the 1 point. When we talk about the 2020 Washington football team defense, it may be somewhat of a mirage. When they played the Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, and Rams, they had a -63 point differential. When they played opponents like the Lions, Bengals, Cowboys, declining Steelers, and the banged up 49ers, the Washington football team had a +47 point differential. This year, the Falcons, 4.7 yards per play. That ranks 28th in the league. They're 30th when it comes to punts per offensive score, 1.8. So they're getting about 2 punts before they can actually score on offense, the Falcons are. So I'm back the Washington football team here. The defense will get right. Offense will look good against a really declining Matt Ryan. Washington football team minus the point. Book it.
Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga. Don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the